track walk for the PCA Sim Racing series on iRacing. My name is Chris Pies. This week I will take you around a virtual track walk of Daytona. Like last week, we will do a video of a lap uninterrupted so you can get a general sense of the speed in the line, and then we will come back, break down the lap corner by corner, talk about things you should be looking for, things to consider, and hopefully it'll help drivers get around this place quickly and safely in the upcoming season finale at Daytona. So without further ado, here is the lap. All right, so that was a lap of Daytona in the 718 Porsche GT4 Club Sport MR in iRacing. This is a neat little track in the sense that it is like the big daddy to all the Rovals that you'll probably ever drive in iRacing. Daytona is a Roval, just like other Rovals in the service, but it seems to be a lot bigger just because the outside oval is so big. A couple of things to remember about or to think about while driving a Roval is that Rovals tend to have huge long straightaways, as we just saw, and they also tend to be relatively flat on the center of the Roval. What that means for us is that in the bankings, in the long straightaways, we have an opportunity to draft our opponents and make up time as the second car. And in the infield, we have to rely on mechanical grip of the car to get us around the tight corners in the technical sections. So Daytona is no different. Daytona is not a complicated track, especially compared to last week's Suzuka. There's relatively few turns. But all of the skill in driving Daytona tends to be about the racecraft. When you should pass people, how you should deal with cars trying to pass you, how you deal with traffic and manage traffic, and how you deal with that aforementioned draft. So let's go ahead and talk about the track and talk about all the different corners. We'll pop out into the chase cam as you see here, as we've done in the past, so we can see all the corners. So coming in across start finish, one thing to remember about the oval and all the oval sections around Daytona is it's best in this particular car to stay as close to the yellow line as possible. This car does not have enough power and carry enough speed to overpower the grip of the tires. So it's best just to keep the track as short as possible, which would be along the yellow line. No need to go any higher than that unless you're trying to pass someone. Coming into turn one, you'll notice that there are marker boards over here on the left at 200, 100. They actually start way before start finish. For this car, I like to try to brake at the end of the grass, or maybe just past it, depending on the tire conditions, track conditions, and obviously traffic if there's any. In terms of lines into turn one, there are a ton of them. You can take the corner starting from the bottom of the track down here by the yellow line if you'd like. You can take it from up at the right hand wall if you'd like, or anywhere in between. For me, I like to take it in the middle because I can't make my mind up between a shallow line or a high line, so I try to take a hybrid of the two. But what we try to do, and the goal here is once we hit the brake zone, which is just, like I said, at the grass, into the grass here for this car, is try to create a straight line through the first part of this corner. Turn one comes off a banking into a flat space, and it's a constant left-hand turn, and it's a decreasing radius turn, meaning the turn gets tighter the further you go. We're coming from our highest speed. In fact, you can see down here at the speedometer, 168 miles an hour. And we're trying to come into a very slow corner around turn one. So we need a lot of the tire grip to slow us down and stop us for turn one. The fastest way to slow down is to ask the tires to do 100% of the braking. And the only way we can do that is if we're braking in a straight line. The tires will not brake as efficiently if we're trying to turn the car as well. So we try to draw a straight line for the first part of our braking zone to do the majority of our braking down. So what I like to do is when I get to the braking marker, which is there, I try to draw a straight line from about mid-track to the apex of this white line here in the distance to track out. And that is my straight line to brake, to get most of my braking done. Once I get past this first part of the corner, you'll notice down here in the bottom of the inputs, I will start bleeding off the brake and start trail braking into the second part of the corner. But that won't happen until the speed is a lot less and until I've got most of my speed scrubbed. You can't start, as I said before, you can't start turning the car until the car won't turn while braking until you start letting off of some of the brake and allowing some of the grip do some turning as well. So keep that in mind. So here we go, coming into turn one, straight line, threshold braking. I am at the maximum ABS that this car will take, slowing the car way down. Now I've passed that first section. I've passed my straight line. I'm starting to turn the car in, and I will start bleeding off the brakes. See how I'm bleeding off the brakes coming to the next part. If you look at the car's attitude here, it is completely rotated, and all of the weight on the car is actually on the front right tire. I'm doing everything I can to get this car both slowed and turned in for turn one. Remember, we went from 168 miles an hour. We're now at 67 miles an hour coming into the second part of the turn. So I've scrubbed 100 miles an hour off in that straight line area before the main part of the turn. This right tire, front right tire, is screaming for help right now. It is at its maximum grip, and the back end of this car is really unloaded. So we need to be aware of that as our tires start to wear, as they start to heat up, as the track starts to become greasier. You may get oversteer coming through this corner where the back end tries to go around while you're trying to turn it for this corner. If that happens, you just open up your wheel a little bit, make the corner a little wider, maybe add a little bit of throttle to settle the rear to get around it. Another thing I need to mention about this corner before we finish it is you've got a lot of run out here on the right. This is not a 1X area for iRacing. You can drive out here and it is considered track surface. It's all paved. There's okay amount of grip out here, and it can be used. So if you have someone dive bomb you on the inside, or you overcooked it into the corner, rather than trying to save it and be a hero, feel free to use this runoff to extend the corner to bring it through safely. Now, at this point, what I'm trying to do with the second part of this corner is I'm trying to apex the corner as close to these tires, like basically behind the tires as I can. So it's a late apex behind the tires, and I want to basically be on throttle coming through this corner because it leads onto another small straightaway. So in order to do that, I need to do a late apex. For me, I take it in second gear. I've tried third gear and rolling more speed, but it seems like every single time I take third gear through here, I carry too much speed and I run a little wide, and I end up having to delay getting on the throttle even more. Second gear seems like a good balance of slowing the car down, getting on the throttle again to get a little run out with second gear, and then popping back up to third. It doesn't, you're not in second gear very long, but it is enough just to make sure that you've got the speed right to go through the corner. So go through, try to do a late apex. On this particular lap, I missed it a little bit. I could be a little bit more over here, but you also have to remember you don't want to hit these tires. If you hit these tires, you're just going to have a terrible day and your race will most likely be ended. So, you know, be wary of that and take as much risk as you deem necessary going through here. So I've already started getting on the throttle. So actually, let's back it up so we can see where I'm starting to get on the throttle through here. So I'm ending my brake right here as I'm doing my final turn in, and I'm actually getting on the throttle way before the apex of this corner in second gear. So I've started feeding it on, and then I will upshift to third, which happened, I believe, just right there when the tailpipes sped out a little backfire. And then I will track out all the way and use this curbing. It is grippy. You have a lot of room out here to track out. You can track out here and treat this little mini S that you see exactly as that. It is two corners, so straight line it as best as possible. Use the curbing. And now we're going to set up for what's called the International Horseshoe, or turn 2, I believe. We'll call it turn 2 for now, or International Horseshoe. So coming through here, we've got to be wary of the blend line that's on the left. Cars exiting pit lane will be on the left side of this blend line. You can cross it when you come through if you're on track, but just be aware that if you do cross it and a car is coming out, you're going to be at fault if you've basically run into them. So be wary of that. I like to cross just after the bend line where these dash marks tend to happen, and then I brake just after the last dash mark, so after this white line here. It's a good easy indication of where to brake for the International Horseshoe. International Horseshoe is an interesting corner. It is very tight, obviously, but at the same time it's got a lot of character, and this is another passing zone for drivers. One of the things that we can do is there's again multiple lines through here, and one thing you will notice when driving through here is that the inside of this turn has some camber to it. I mean, it's relatively flat, but as much camber as that a flat course can have, the inside of this corner has it. So it's actually pretty beneficial to keep the car on the inside and use that camber as much as you can in order to help turn the car around the corner. So you'll see what I mean as we go through. So I'm already got on my brakes, and we start to turn in here, and you can actually see how the inside of the track is relatively cambered. There seems to be a groove in the middle of the track, and then on the outside of that groove, it seems to be off cambered. The track falls away from us. So we don't want to be on the outside on this corner. We want to be on the inside, and we want to be on the inside relatively early to get advantage of that camber. So I've taken this particular corner, or on this particular run, from the outside to try to extend the corner as much as possible, but you can also take it from mid-track and still get a pretty good result. So I've turned in, and I've actually turned in earlier than you would normally expect for a corner like this. This corner is, if you look at a track map, a hairpin for all intents and purposes. I mean, it is a 180-degree turn effectively. Normally what you would do is you would run it wide deep in here, and you would try to diamond the corner off, meaning get the turn done somewhere over here and straight line coming out. But because the inside of this corner is cambered and we want to use that to help us turn, we're actually turning in a lot earlier. So you'll notice I've already done my turn in, and we can get this curbing here. I know I've done it right when I can get my right two wheels up on this curbing and ride it around. So right here, get on the curbing a little bit, and you'll notice there's a second curbing here that you can also use if you are able to get it turned in even further. And then track out, and when we track out, we're going to be using all of this little access road, and if we do it right, we'll put our left wheels on this curbing on the outside. One thing to remember about this corner, though, is we're leading onto a decent sized straightaway. So we want to get on the throttle as soon as we can. But we also don't want to spin the wheels coming out of this corner. We want to get a nice, good, solid run out of the corner. So this car has a particular tendency to oversteer coming out of the International Horseshoe. So we have to slowly feed on throttle. You notice that, I'm just now getting to apex, but I've already started to feed on throttle to settle the rear of the car. I'm adding more and more throttle, but notice as I'm adding throttle, I'm letting go of my steering. I'm unwinding the wheel a bit. And the idea behind that is that I'm trying to straighten the car out so the tires don't have to turn while accelerating. So I'm giving up turning grip for the car to be able to accelerate properly. I can't just mash the throttle in this car because it's going to oversteer and traction control is going to kick in and it's going to hurt my exit. So it's a gentle throttle coming all the way out until I know that I can make it. I know I'm not going to spin the rears up, and then I can hammer the throttle coming through. I use all of the run out here, 2 wheels up on the curb to maximize the turn, and now I'm headed up into turn 4, which is this kink. Talking about passing zones, this is not a passing zone. Even if you get a run out of someone, unless you are by them, unless you basically your car is 2/3 of the way past them on the inside, I would not try to stick my nose in here. This is in the GT4 on warm tires. It is a flat out curve, and the GT4 is fully loaded with nowhere to go. In some other cars that have more grip, you can sometimes take it too wide, but in this car, you got to use every inch of the track to take this on a proper line as fast as this car will go. If you try to take it too wide, it's either the inside car is going to run wide or the outside car is going to turn into the inside car, and there's probably going to be contact. So I highly advise it. I highly advise against going through this too wide. Taking it normally, it's just a standard kink. I try to turn in right here where you can see you see this little white line tends to kink it. It's like a painted line, and then it paints a different type of vector or something like that, and it's a little bit edgier. Right around there is a pretty good indication to turn in. It's not a hard turn in, difficult to turn in to get right. When we do it, we want to put our left wheels on this curbing over here on the left to maximize the amount of track we have. And then we're aiming for track out, and you will use all the track out if you've got this car planted through here. Note that when you're on cold tires, you may have to give a little bit of a lift coming through here because the rear end is going to want to try to swap ends on you coming through. But once the tires are nice and heated up, you can stay planted. Coming into turn 5, it is International Horseshoe version 2. It's the same thing basically, except there's less camber on the turn at the apex curbing, so it's more of a flat corner. For me, I like to come through the kink, get the car nice and settled in a straight line, and then brake basically where this access road is. You can use these cones to get your brake marker even more fine-tuned if no one has hit them. But be aware that sometimes people will run and they'll run them over and they will disappear, so you can't use them anymore. But the access road is a good general area of braking point. We want to settle the car, brake the car in a straight line, and there's lots of ways. If you're noticing a trend, there's lots of ways to this corner too. The way I took on this particular lap is I took a wide angle diamond the corner off early. So I basically backed the corner off and did my turning out here so I can get on throttle to carry speed down the straightaway. You can also take it nice and tight and do all your braking to bring you in nice and tight and keep the car basically hugged around the apex on the inside of the corner. You will be slower at the corner than the guy that diamonded off, but you're traveling less distance. So from a time standpoint, it tends to be a wash. But this is a good opportunity to have a lot of good racing coming into this corner. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to come in here too hot and run off into this runoff area. There's just no grip out there, and you basically have to stop the car in order to get it pointed in the right direction. So I've started my braking. Like all the other turns, it's a very heavy braking zone. It's a tight turn, so we're using all of our grip to brake in a straight line, and that's why I'm threshold braking in a straight line, and then you'll notice I'll start to trail it off. But for this particular one, I take a wide line, so I don't start trailing it off until way later. And what I'm trying to do here, notice I'm backing out of the brake and I'm steering right now, so I'm trailing. I'm trying to apex this corner somewhere around the corner so I can get to throttle somewhere about mid-corner, apex here, and carry that speed through. So if we watch how I do it, I'm looking for my apex point. It's way around the corner, as you just saw. Apex way late. I mean, I'm apexing basically where the yellow marker or the yellow curving has ended, to make this as straight as possible and get on the throttle. So you can see I'm at full throttle. If we back up a little bit and take another look, you can see just how early I am starting to feed throttle. So I am basically turned in, and I'm starting to feed the throttle and use the throttle to help rotate the car and get a good run through here. So you can see how that works. Late apex, full throttle, before apex, unwind the steering wheel as the car starts to get a little bit oversteery, and have a run down into turn 6, which leads us back onto NASCAR. So for turn 6, it is another really tight corner, but it is going the other way instead. So we are going left. We need to get a good run out of turn 6. In fact, turn 6 is probably one of the more, if not the most important, the second most important corner on the track, because it leads on to the NASCAR oval. For a brake marker, we conveniently have another access road over here on the right. Right at the beginning of it is a great place to start slowing the car down. Again, threshold braking down, trail brake in to a late apex is the name of the game on this track. So we've already started our threshold braking, starting to bleed off brake while I'm turning in. And the goal, like every single turn on this track, there's a lot of different lines. For me, I like to shorten the and get the turn done as quick as possible. So I will bring it in, keep it nice and tight, put 2 wheels on this curbing, and basically just nice and tidy around. Don't go past mid-track and get on the throttle when I can. It is also perfectly viable to take this turn nice and deep. Diamond the corner off, so get your turning done early on in the turn, and then get on the throttle to try to get the best run you can down the straightaway. You can also take it in relatively shallow and early, which will lead you to run wide on exit, but that's okay because it's completely open out there, and try to carry as much speed through the corner and have the highest minimum speed through the corner as possible. The only downside to that is you're traveling quite a long distance in order to do that, and you may not make the speed that you retain going through the corner may not make up that extra distance you're traveling. So for me, I like to do kind of a hybrid, just a safe, nice and tidy line, 2 wheels on this curbing, keep it nice and tight. I've already started feeding on the throttle, but notice I have not gotten to full throttle. Exit on this corner is slippery in this car. If you put too much throttle too soon, you will get an oversteer situation, which means you'll have to get out of the throttle, and it will kill your momentum going down. So we want to do everything we can to keep the rear end of the car settled underneath us. As we unwind the steering wheel, we start to feed on throttle to lead onto the straightaway. I like to clip in this little second apex here and get a nice long run coming into here. Coming down the straightaway, this is a great place where you're going to probably be drafting another car. Check your mirrors, see if anybody got a good run on you coming out of the last corner. Look at the guy in front of you, see if you've got a better run than him coming out of that last corner, and see if you potentially could put a pass on him before we get to the bus stop. Also relax, take a couple deep breaths, and start thinking about your brake zone for the bus stop. So for bus stop, we'll speed it up a little bit till we get to the bus stop area. You notice there's a couple of signs up here on the top. There's a 3, a 2, and a 1. These are good brake markers to kind of get your idea of how far the bus stop is. For me, in this car, I like to brake between the 2 and this little yellow pole, or this yellow box on this pole right here. If I'm feeling really good, I will brake closer to the yellow box. If I'm not feeling as good, I will brake a little earlier. The nice thing about this is, there's not that many lines through the bus stop that are fast. It is a passing zone if you can get your car up alongside your opponent and buy them before you brake. It is very risky to try to outbrake someone into the bus stop because, like I said, there's really only one line through here, and it relies on a lot of trust that the car being passed is going to delay their turn-in point until after you get by them. That's why I say that you need to be by them before you try to make a move like this. If you try to make a move on them when you're still behind them like this, that's relying on your ability to somehow brake quicker than they can and not run wide and run into them when they turn down to make the corner themselves. So keep that in mind. The bus stop is probably where people make the most errors. It's also probably the most important corner on the track, and it's probably the most difficult. In real life, I've seen a bunch of cars get totaled going through the bus stop. The car is really loaded on one side, and then you're flinging all the weight to the other side, and weird things can happen when that happens if you're not prepared for them. So for me, the way I like to take the bus stop, brake somewhere right around this area between the yellow sign and the 2 board. And then what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a lot of our speed scrubbed before we do the turn in. And then as we're turning in, we maintain that brake pressure. So you see, look at this, full brake, turn in. I've let off the brake so we can get the turn in because we can't brake and turn at the same time. Turn in. Now I've got the car lined up where I want to, and I'm trying to connect a straight line between this curbing and this curbing. We're going to use all of the curbing. Left tires are going to be basically almost on the grass. And then the same thing for the next one. Right side tires are going to be pretty darn close to the grass. Don't clip the grass in any one of these situations because that's a 1X in iRacing, but you can get right up to it. So I'm going to take it real slow so we can see. So I missed this one a little bit in this particular one. Notice I'm still on the brakes. Still on the brakes. The later you brake down the straightaway, the longer you have to be on the brakes. I got off of the brakes a little bit for that second portion because I needed to turn the car again, but then I got on the brakes again to help rotate the car in. You notice that I've already started to turn my wheel. I'm adding a little bit of throttle to settle the rear, and the whole goal of the bus stop is we want to be on throttle after this second turn. So when we're taking a right turn, the earlier we can get on throttle and maintain throttle through the second part of the bus stop, the better, because that we take that speed and we run with it all the way down to start finish into turn 1. So if you can see how I've done that, I've started feeding on the throttle going right, holding full throttle all the way through. We clip the grass on the second one, so that's the trend through the bus stop is every single curbing we're trying to basically put our wheels almost on the grass. And then on this last curbing is a little bit different. You can actually put 2 wheels in the grass here on your way out and not get a 1X. In fact, I did not get a 1X for this lap coming through here, even though, the 2 wheels were obviously in there. So let's take another look at that just because the bus stop is so important, and I will let it run at slow speed so you can get a better idea. So here we come, coming into the bus stop. Hard brake, a little bit off the brake, let it turn in, a little bit more brake. Connect the apexes in a straight line, turn in, full throttle, ride that throttle all the way through to carry the momentum coming up to the straightaway. Now coming down the straightaway, it's just a straightaway on a NASCAR track. This car is not struggling for grip anywhere. It's completely flat out. We want to minimize the distance traveled, so we hug the yellow line. The thing to be from a racecraft perspective is if you're hugging the yellow line and a car's trying to pass you, they're going to have to go high side, and that is really difficult to pass someone on the outside on the straightaways. Cars tend to run out of momentum coming off of that curve that we just passed. If they try to take an outside line, they're traveling a further distance, and usually about right here is where they start to run out of steam, and you can typically maintain your place over them if they try to pass on the outside, all things considered. So there we go. That is a lap of Daytona. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, if you have any questions about the corners, about racing in general, please feel free to send me a message on Discord. I will answer them in the order that I receive them. And as a reminder, this Monday, I will be doing a classroom for the PCA EDE program. We will be discussing setup, and we can also discuss some aspects of racecraft and maybe even go over some video from the Suzuka race, look at some incidents and see what could have been done to, avoid certain things or benefit from other areas. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and good luck at Daytona. Bye.